going to mute unless you need me.
Well, actually, before you do, I was just going to quickly remind everybody what the topic is. Of course, you got an email about this, so you probably already know. It's kind of a mixed bag tonight. I was going to present some tips and tricks. I put out a short list of some things I've prepared for demo. But by all means, at any point, if you have a tip or trick of your own that you want to share, or we want to do a deeper dive into one of these things, feel free to speak up. This isn't so much a presentation as a discussion. And with that in mind, I'd like to take a few minutes and see if anybody's just been working on something interesting lately, wants to take a moment and, what have you been up to since last month? Anything especially interesting?
Chris, as you know, I played with the cards.
Yes, the cards in FileMaker 16.
Yeah, I haven't working. I blipped you because I didn't show up when I was playing with that the first time. So that's why I kind of put it out there to you.
Oh, that's right.
So thank you very much.
Yeah. I actually, I've been working on a project that's primarily for iOS, and got pretty embarrassingly far down a path of putting a very similar popover on like 5 different layouts, and then remembered, oh yeah, we have cards, and it's made the project so much easier. Just wherever I am, I just open that card.
Going forward, it will be easier, but because you got to remember, you no longer have to go to the next new window. You know what I mean? Not changing windows and going to the next layout.
Right.
So if I can ask, what are cards? I've got 16, but I haven't been able to get into it yet.
Well, here actually, this may take a second to open up, but I'll just show you the project one that has cards.
Where did I lose?
What was that now?
Somehow I lost my GoToMeeting.
Oh, goodness. Well, come on back. Yeah, this is, you can all see my screen, right?
Yeah, yep. One of my pet peeves about the Mac just cropped up.
Oh, no. So I have these screens for iOS where these guys are inspecting power units at power plants. And so they can, drill down to a particular power unit. From there, they can drill down to various subsystems and so forth. This is going to run slower than ever because I'm on GoToMeeting. There we go. Right. And, and they can drill down further and further and further. So there's about 5 different layouts involved. But from anywhere, for instance, they need to be able to enter tests they've performed. So I put this button down here on the button bar, and it opens up a card. This is actually a standalone layout.
Okay.
Right, and actually this is showing off one of the tricks that I put in our in the list of tips and tricks for tonight. They can enter tests. They can actually select them from a list if they want, or they can add some brand new tests that they just made up. It's unusual. And they can enter results, but rather than have a popover or have a tab on every layout, they just open this, which is a layout in its own right, and like it's got a chart, and I don't have to redo that chart in several places. I just go to the related record on this layout, and I can see it from anywhere. But
you can basically put anything on a card layout.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing you can't
doesn't have to be
a card from a card. So it's like popovers, where you can't have a popover on a popover. You can't have a portal on a portal. You also can't have a card on a card.
Now, are you doing tabs within the card?
Yes.
Versus data? Okay. So those are actual tabs, okay.
Yeah, you can do tabs or slide panels, popovers, pretty much anything on a card window. I don't think I've run across anything.
Card doesn't have to be from the same.
It doesn't have to be from the same.
From the same table of currents.
It doesn't even have to be from the same file.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So pretty.
Any experience thoughts about things like record locking and committing when you're using a card?
I think they're, it's pretty much the same as if you opened any other new window.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're, sorry, I'm getting distracted. Just like if you had two windows open in FileMaker, you know, they're still locking both records. So
Right.
you do have to be cautious. For instance,
The
if you
question
were
would be,
editing a record in the back.
Committed, Chris?
I'm sorry, say again?
With the screen behind that you initiated your card from, will that be committed? I think that might
Not
be a better
unless you,
question.
not unless you commit it,
Okay.
which of course you could do with your script, right?
Yeah,
If you
Yeah.
if you open up a card,
Mhm.
closing the card commits that record on that layout that the card was from, but not necessarily the layout that you're in at the moment,
Correct.
I would think.
Correct. Yeah, again, just like if you had two regular windows open, if you close
Mhm.
one of those, it commits whatever record that window was on. But you still have the same caveats that, like if you go to related from a portal and you were editing the record in the portal, you can't also edit it on the other window.
right.
You can't edit the same record in two windows. But I think for myself, my primary use is going to be when I'm going to something that isn't in a portal, that isn't available on this layout. It allows me to display stuff really even out of context, even without a relationship, right? I can go find some other record that, you know, isn't even connected on the RG. So
You didn't mention that. Look at how the background layout's still there, but it's dimmed, and you can't work on it.
right, so I can't just click around it. It's a modal window. And in fact, you can turn off the capability of closing. This may look funny, by the way. This is something unusual. This is primarily for iOS. On iOS, this button doesn't show up for some reason. So I just put my own close button. Yeah, it's
And you can hide object when on that.
on my own. Yeah, on my own button I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I could just disable closing, but put a button that would close. Because when you disable closing, all you're really doing is disabling that close button.
Okay.
This button will still work. So if I just told it don't allow closing, this would go away. But since they're only going to use this on iOS, I didn't bother.
Maybe you're supposed to swipe away the card.
I don't think you can, but now you've got me wondering. That'd be interesting.
Did you get your Reflector app so that you can show your iPad to us today?
Yeah, I did indeed. Yeah, that's right. That came out of the last meeting.
Yeah, I listened to the last meeting and I downloaded that Reflector today. That's really slick.
Oh, it is really awesome. It's actually here. I can, let's see, AirPlay. It's so easy. I'm just going to throw it up here. Of course, I said that. Now it's going to misbehave, but here it comes. Oh, dude, just stop it. Once you know it. Now everything is going to just stop. No, really, honest. It's never done this until I'm trying to do a prezo. So,
It's Murphy's Law.
yeah, like, how does it know? There you go. Yeah, there's my iPad. So, yeah, so I can open this same solution over here. Although this is one downside is everybody gets
Yeah.
password.
I shall avert my eyes.
Yeah, yeah, since it's somebody else's solution, I better just take it down for a second. But And it is at this point that I realize that my password is very hard to type on.
Oh, it's a very strong password.
It's too strong for an iPad. I have to switch keyboards several times, which tells you a little something about it, doesn't it? Oh, come on.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw you for a loop here.
You're all right. It's my own fault. I got nerd sniped. I couldn't help myself. All right, I'm almost there. All right. I can't walk and chew bubble gum and get that up there, but that isn't our main topic tonight, so I should probably let it go. It's one of those things that's like, oh, this will only take 2 seconds. Yeah. But actually, if, well, I've kind of had the floor shoved at me here. I had a question for the group. I had an interesting challenge come up today where I have a client who needs to insert photos into their iPad solution. And of course, normally I'm just having them do capture photo and they just put the photo right in, straight from the camera. And what he needs is for the picture to have a timestamp on the picture. And normally he does that with a third-party application. All right. So we need a way to either get a timestamp onto the photo when we capture it, or we need to be able to add the timestamp to the photo later. Has anybody had to do that for any of their projects?
Chris?
Yes.
Chris, I have something different, but the logic is the same thing, that I need to overlay and put it inside the captured image. So it's a little convoluted, but what we do is take the image that we're working with, the user actually is drawing over it, but then we go into preview mode and use the copy feature, paste or insert to another field, and you've captured whatever was on that print preview. So you've got the actual photo with the text or the drawing on top of it.
Oh,
you have to
interesting.
make page setup specific so that you have a nice tight size.
Right. So you're taking the picture, putting it in preview mode, then saving that as like a PDF?
Yeah, basically, making a report, so to speak. Not even PDF. It's just if you go into preview mode and choose copy, you're copying an image of whatever FileMaker was displaying for the print preview. And so you can turn around and then paste it into a field.
I didn't even know that would work.
Does that work in Go?
I don't know, but that's a really old feature, actually.
Well, when you said that they're drawing.
Well, see there, I'm using some JavaScript that I got from some guy in MIT. So there, I actually have to load a web viewer in front of the photo, and of course, that you can't really do. So instead, we send the photo down to a temporary folder in HTML so that we can now incorporate it into the JavaScript with HTML so that we can then draw over actually what looks like the photo. So it's just a little convoluted way of making it all display because you can't see through a web viewer.
Very cool, Karen.
That is
very neat.
Very cool. That's a novel approach. I knew somebody would have. It's like I knew it's something that I just feel like ought to be easy. And I was coming up with several ways, but none of them I would describe as easy. This sounds like it could work.
Hey, Chris,
I think for your case, just dropping text on and going to copy. But the question is, right, does that work in Go? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I will be testing that. I'll report back. Yeah.
Hey, Chris, this is Jason. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's one idea that I have, but I was thinking the one that she just mentioned, if you take a screen capture of it, that's actually a lower resolution of the image, which you might want or you might not want, but it sounds very clever. Something that the iOS has is and Apple just bought this app from the developer. It's called Workflow, and it
Okay.
uses URLs to pass tasks between applications. It's almost like AppleScript that I demoed at one point, but and you literally can do things like that. I just haven't used it yet.
That was another thing I was going to investigate because I vaguely remember hearing about that, a way to pass commands between iOS apps.
And it's just a URL.
Yeah, as a
and
URL.
The app's called Workflow.
Yeah, that right there is probably going to save me about half an hour of searching, just knowing the name of the blasted thing in the first place. Thank you so much. All right. Well, before we dive into some tips and tricks, does anybody else have anything interesting they're working on, or thorny questions like that? Or
Chris, what's the best way to learn themes?
play with them, in my own experience. Anybody else?
Yeah, play with them on a dummy file.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
That's always a good idea.
Yeah.
Because you can really muck them up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've
You know anyone who's looking?
Oh, I'm sorry. I've ended up playing with them a lot, but one thing I'd say, Jim, where we've gotten is we theme everything.
Do you?
Yeah. Anything, if we're going to alter a field or a button or whatever, we also make a theme for it. Just because later on, when you decide you want to change themes or you decide you want to mess with your styles, is not the time to go back and put a theme on every object on every layout. It's too late.
Yeah, that's
it's easier to do it. It's pretty easy to do as you go, if you remember.
You mean a style on every object that
Yes,
becomes
a
part of
style.
the theme?
I'm sorry. Yes, a style.
Okay. Confused me.
You're right. No, you're right. Those words are not interchangeable, but they come out of my mouth at random. So, yeah, styles. Put a style on everything. Because
Any thoughts on good ways to organize?
Oh, go ahead.
Styles. Thoughts on good ways to organize styles? Because I've come up with, all those different variations of text and fields. Is it going to be a data entry field, or is it not enterable? Is it a left justified heading, a right justified heading? What size it is? Or do I just is it okay to have a bunch of objects that are based on a theme, but then have a modification, like it's right justified where the style is left justified?
That's a new style.
Yeah.
You should never see any of those red triangles.
Right. There's a lot to unpack there. You actually mentioned at least three things. One is organizing them, and I'm not as religious about this as I am about other naming conventions, but I'm getting there. What I generally try to do is, of course, in this case, I've just done everything iOS because I've got these very specialized layouts. But normally I'm putting something to indicate what type it is, like it's a button, it's a field, etc. And then I just get verbose after that. When you're picking,
I end up doing that.
When you're picking styles, it only shows you stuff that applies to that object anyway. So it's not like you're going to end up with this, list that runs on for page after page after page. Because if you're clicking on a container, for instance, I only see styles I can apply to a container. Or if I click on a tab, I only see styles I can apply to a tab. So the lists tend to be pretty short. So really, for me so far, it's primarily about namespacing. The other thing you said about having a style that's, like an object that's on a style, but you've made a slight change to it, I would say make another style for it. You changed it for a reason, so there is some other purpose that you can assign a style to. And then the third part of something you said was naming your styles with like the size and the justification and things like that?
I do.
I try very hard not to put that into the name of the style. Name the style according to its purpose, not its format. Because the whole point of the style is that you can change the format.
Got it.
Right? So, for instance, if you had something, a style called 10-point aerial right justified, that's exactly the thing you want to change. So you'd end up changing the name. What you really need to know is what is the thing that is currently 10-point aerial right justified, so that you know what it is you're changing. Like this is a portal field, or this is a, label text, right?
Right.
Because that's what you want to change. The label text will still be label text, even though it's now 12-point Times New Roman left justified.
Yeah.
So we do try and name our styles by the purpose, not by what their current formatting happens to be. Make sense?
Yeah. And as far as trying to add a theme to a layout that's classic, forget it. Just start from scratch.
Yeah, actually, if you want to switch to another theme, you'll probably want to add those named styles to the theme you're switching to. So that when you switch themes, nothing ends up being an unknown style.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to practice with that.
Yeah, and I'm still practicing with it, by the way. I'm only sharing what I've gotten through so far from playing with it. So back to Jim's point, it takes some trial and error at this point.
It's not true CSS. It doesn't cascade.
Oh, yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, yeah.
I sure wish it would. And, of course, I wish they'd let us edit it. That would be the best.
I remember when they first set it up, Ronnie, our engineer, was demoing, and I hadn't even looked at the program. The first thing I did is started ripping apart the themes, and he's like, please, don't do that, don't. You can get everything so easily in the
Right.
I still suspect I could probably still muck about with it and get away with it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that to a client.
No, probably not. Okay. Anybody else? Anything else coming up lately?
I could complain a lot about DNS and things like that.
DNS?
I'm like 8 months into trying to migrate a client, and most of the hell has just been getting their IT people to set up a VPN tunneling situation between two offices. So I've learned an awful lot about networking that I shouldn't have had to know. But there you go, almost there.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and start right in then? And like I said, everybody keep talking, okay? Don't feel like that's a big thing with this online meeting is don't feel like you have to be muted. Don't feel like you have to be quiet. Speak up just like if you were in the room with me, okay? I love the feedback. If it gets quiet and I start hearing crickets, I start worrying that everybody either got bored or their eyes glazed over.
How do you feel about heckling?
Oh, heckling is awesome. I like heckling. And with your permission, I'll do it next time when you present too. That's just good fun right there. All right. Let me put this into slideshow mode here. So here are the things that, again, I put together some demo files for some of my own tips and tricks. But again, jump in if there's something you want to dive in deeper to, or it brings to mind another tip or trick that you use. I wanted to show a panel with unlimited tabs. If you've ever run out of room for a new tab on a tab panel, you're aware of the challenge. this is, we actually just saw this, a little sneak peek on screen, but the ability to have a cross-tab data entry interface where you're in a situation where the user may need to add additional columns or add additional rows. And I've come up with a way to do that in a portal that I think is at least interesting. I was going to go over some virtual list basics. And when we get to that, I'll ask you again, but if everybody in the room is just completely comfortable with virtual list, I'll skip over the basics, but there's always somebody who hasn't tried it yet, and I've got a very basic demo of that. I've got an example of a virtual list hierarchy where you can collapse and expand groups in a virtual list, just to give one example of how it might be used. I have some custom functions that I use for creating SQL requests. It is kind of a work in progress that we've only used internally, but it's already pretty powerful, and I'm going to share it with the group just freely, with my only ask being that if you improve it, tell me about it. And then if we have time, I was going to bring up magic value lists, which I got from Jeremy Banty, but he gives credit to a couple other people. And that actually uses SQL and virtual lists, so I thought it might be a good way to bring things together. And looks like Owen Caldwell asked me to make him the presenter. Was that accidental, Owen? Or... Oh, that's okay, Owen. No problem at all. And as I was just saying, don't be afraid to unmute. Okay. Actually, can we hold on for just a moment? I got a text from someone who's trying to join us, and he's asking for the meeting ID. Let me just punch that into a text, and we'll get back to business. This is Charles Wilchin, who has attended with us before. He's out of Chicago. And we were talking today. I want to make sure he joins because he may even have a demo file for how to clean addresses. I gave him short notice, so he might not have it for tonight, but I'm going to throw him under the bus anyway. Okay. So first thing, panel with unlimited tabs. The challenge is you've got too many tabs in a panel to fit. You know, you start putting things into tabs, and just the names of the tabs won't fit left to right. Also, you might have the desire to use slides, a slide panel instead of a tab panel because of the ease of use. For example, you can double click on if a slide panel is a locked object, you can still double click on it, move through tabs, change the names of things, not move through tabs, move through panels. You can even add panels while the object is locked. That's not true of a tab panel. So I know for myself, I find slides easier to use. And finally, you might want to do some creative stuff where maybe some of those quote-unquote tabs aren't really tabs. Maybe they're running scripts that go to another layout, or maybe they're doing something else before they go to the tab, like which you could do with a on-panel switch trigger. But really the thing is you want to add steps to just switching.
Can I mention something?
Yes, of course.
I like to use a slide, just one deep, as a grouping object so that I can have editable layout objects not locked down, but I can still, as a group, move them around the page.
I have actually used slide panels for that too. That is very useful. Just to get stuff together. You know, in the past, before slide panels, I've even used a one-line portal that way, just to group stuff. That grouping object is really nice.
Oh wow! I never thought of that. For 12 on up, the portal would have been useful for that.
Mm-hmm. It also the portal. Now I'm getting off topic, but with the one-row portal, that also putting related values in a one-row portal allows you to use the delete portal row command so that you can delete a related record. And I've used that way as well. But my primary objective at the time was to get the group like you were talking about. So anyway, straight to the demonstration here. I'm going to actually put these files up on our website when we're done. And you can share them freely. Like I said, it's nothing proprietary or anything like that. But let's go to, come on, panel with unlimited tabs. So here's this very beautiful, elegant file. I'm being sarcastic, right? I left the dots showing. You would normally hide them in this method. Okay, but I actually have 5 slide panels here. Let me blow this up a little. Oh, gosh, 16. Somebody remind me, how do I zoom? They took this away, and I got used to it. Zoom in. There we go. We'll make it a little bit larger here. Okay. So I actually have 5 slides here, but I'm only showing 3 quote-unquote tabs, and I'll explain how I'm doing that in a bit. And as I'm clicking here, I'm switching, you know, tab 1, tab 2, tab 3, but I've got this arrow where I can move over, and I can go to tab 4, tab 5, switch back. See what we're doing here? So if they don't fit, I just end up with an arrow where I can move on to some more. Okay. And the way that I'm doing that is that this is a button bar, right? And I can make them look more like tabs, make them rounded and everything. I actually didn't want to disguise what I'm doing here. Each one has a hide when, a conditional format, and a button parameter. Okay. Likewise, the left and right buttons have a hide when and a button parameter. These 2 buttons and all of these buttons actually run the same script. If I look in scripts, it's just the one script that takes a parameter and either says plus, meaning I want to move to the shift everything to the right, minus, I want to shift everything to the left, or what particular slide panel do I want to go to. Okay. And if I want to add a slide panel to this, let's say, okay, so I've got that one. Oh, these are really, really awful demo names, but that one, anything, the other one, I can move over, added later, demonstration, right? If I want to add a slide panel to this, I say I want a new slide panel, and in the inspector, which for some reason won't open right now, view, inspector. Does anybody else notice that some keystrokes don't seem to work in 16, or is it just me? I'm going to take it it's just me. Okay. I can name my... I'm sorry?
Still getting familiar.
Me too. So I'm going to call this one brand new, right? So this does 2 things. Just the naming says this means it's one of the slides in this slide panel, and this is the name I want to display on the button. So all I had to do was add a new slide, call it that. I go back into browse mode and go left, go right. There's my brand new tab. So it's about as easy as adding a tab to a tab panel.
Yeah, that's pretty easy, yeah.
But you didn't add a button.
I didn't have to. It's reusing this button.
Oh, okay, got it.
Right, so this button is formatted to say take whatever button I'm starting on, shows here. This is whatever button I'm starting on plus 1, and this is whatever button I'm starting on plus 2. Okay? It gets the names of the objects that start with SLD underscore and picks that value from the list. Does that make sense to you?
Love it.
So that's get layout object names.
Yeah, I'm actually, no, I was going to actually throw this out to the group. I ended up having to add one of my custom functions because I couldn't think at the time of a quicker and easy way to do that. I have a custom function called values starting with so that I can look at layout object names and then just take all of those that start with SLD underscore. So
Cool.
this custom function just, I use it all the time, and it occurred to me as I was creating this that I can't be the only one who does this, and I bet not everybody uses a custom function. But if I look at values starting with, for instance, apple, orange, aardvark, and I say starting with A, so it'll just pick out of the list whatever starts with that string. It occurs to me just now as I'm showing you that I could have named the whole slide object and used the get layout object attribute to get all the objects contained within. But no, you'd end up with all sorts of other objects in here, and I really only want the slides. Does that make sense? Like there may be all sorts of other objects on the layout, but I only want to work with the list of SLD objects.
Right.
So that's where I ended up with that starting with custom function. It's a pretty simple custom function, but what do others in the group do when you have a list and you want everything from the list that starts with a certain string, or does that just not happen to you?
No, I haven't dealt with that. So.
Interesting. Yeah, I end up using it all the time. It ends up being a really useful tool. Like I said, it occurred to me as I was creating this, I just kind of take it for granted because I have it at my fingertips and I use it all the time, but surely you shouldn't need a custom function to do that.
Well, since nobody knows about it, you want to show it to us?
Yeah, sure. So it takes two parameters, the values or the list of values and the start string I'm trying to pull out. And basically for each goes through and says if it gets the string length, what's the length of the start string? And then says, okay, are the first that many characters in the value I'm evaluating, do they match the start string? Yes or no. If they do, I add them to the list. If they don't, I just move on.
And then later on, you're cutting off the SLD part.
Yes, in this case I am. Yeah. So this is the just a generic custom function. Let's take everything in this list that starts with, and then in where I'm getting, for instance, the name. Let me get this to pull up. This actually says, what number am I looking for? What's the beginning, which I set into a global variable called tab start. So then figure out what's the real button number that button 1 is supposed to be going to. Then I get the list of the SLD objects. I get that value from the list, and then I strip off where is it here? Get value list number substitute, right?
You're taking off the first 4 characters.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, I was looking for that. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm taking off the first 4 characters, and I'm also replacing any underscores with spaces. Because I like to name everything with underscores. I don't like to leave spaces. Kind of a personal preference. So I made it so if I name something with underscores, it won't display with an underscore in the name.
Underscores are a lot easier when you do a complete select.
Yeah. Well, of course, they've that has changed on Windows in the last couple of versions, but I'll quote Karen here. If you really want to hear me gripe, I can go on about this for a while.
Okay. Say that again when you're trying to select the word that has underscores. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Here, watch this.
Windows always selects way too much text.
Oh, come on. Now this is going to work here. If I were to, of course, I don't have any fields, do I? Hang on. We'll get there. I gotta wait for this thing to type ahead. I just typed, by the way, like 8 characters. I'm waiting. Hello.
Chris, a generic question. How often do you have to do stuff like this, or do you do it all the time now?
Do stuff like?
Find you where you have not enough, the old panel thing via FileMaker doesn't suffice. And you're using your dynamic part here.
I've just started using this, to be honest. And I'm planning on it for our next release of our base solution. Because by the time you find out you need it, you've got a tab panel with like 12 tabs on it. And it's a little late to restructure things. You know?
And I like this idea, Chris, because it does save you real estate. But I would have to sell my clients on it because I think they have to see everything at once.
Yeah, I mean, I did up this demo with, whoops, back to the demo. I did up this demo with only 3. I'm just keeping it simple. But, I mean, you could easily have like 10 across on a normal width screen. You know, so 99% of the time on regular screens, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between this and a regular tab panel, right? Except that maybe there's a little space on the end, right? But when you get to where you need that 11th tab, you don't have to, well, which thing do we abbreviate the heck out of,
But again, I think I could sell them on it, but it would take some education and saying, look, this is really going to be better that you click through instead of finding it in this jumble of tab labels.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'm envisioning a pull-down list that shows you what's hidden behind the left arrow or the right.
Yeah, I was just about just that. You could definitely do that. Turn this into, in fact, using the magic value list method, which if we don't get to that, by the way, just Google magic value list FileMaker, you'll find it. But you could make a dynamic value list that would pull down. And really, I think users are getting used to that. I mean, even in, for instance, the script workspace does that in FileMaker. If you run out of room, there's this drop down over here or this arrow so that you can get onto more. Google does that. If you've ever managed to open enough tabs. Yeah, if you've managed to open enough tabs in a browser, which usually is when I figure out that I need to close some stuff. But
for me, it's bookmarks. And when I have a lot of bookmarks.
Yeah, that too. So I think it's a familiar interface for people.
Cool.
But and like I said, if you set it up this way at the beginning, and you've got, let's say, 10 across, you won't even notice it on most of the layouts where you're using it. It's just it opens that up so that when you need to add that 11th one or that 12th one or whatever, you don't have to tear this whole thing down or go, well, do I have to abbreviate things? Do I have to make subtabs? Do I have to, you just tag it on the end and the arrows and stuff such take care of themselves.
I wonder how hard it would be to make the size of those somewhat dynamic. So you could show all 10, but 9 of them are really short, and your name is is shortened with 3 dots, and then only the one that you're on is big, so you can read it.
That's
That would be an
interesting.
interesting option.
I bet you could. I bet you could. Like show a few letters and dot, dot, dot.
Yeah, for each button that you're
Yeah,
not
that
on.
doesn't sound too hard. Yeah.
So you could show all 10 buttons at the same time, but only the one you're on would be wide enough to read.
Yeah. It wouldn't.
That's very cool, Amos.
It wouldn't actually change the size though if you're showing them. Now this is if I were to only have 2 tabs on here. Let me get this blasted thing to open up. There it goes. I'm gonna randomly delete a few here, so I only have 2. See, the 2 will take up the whole space. You do understand that, right, about button bars?
Mm-hmm.
Though with your hide win, you still get the full width, which I happen to like. I don't know aesthetically if that doesn't work for some of you, but let me put those back. I love being able to undo after I've gone into browse. That is so cool. So like I said, I'm going to make this file available to everyone. Is there anything that you can't quite figure out how this is working or that you want to dig into, or should we move on to the next thing?
You might have to think carefully about putting 2 of these on the same layout.
You might, yeah. You'd need a different start string, right?
Right?
Like you could have one set that starts with SLD1 or another, and the other one starts with SLD2 so that they can tell each other apart. Yeah. Anybody else? Do you want to see any of the other calculations, or you want to just look at the file later? And I'm sure you could parse through it. I'm sure theoretically, most if not all of you can already tell what's going on.
You know what might be nice, Chris?
What's that?
The number, if you have a little thing that says the number of tabs.
Oh yeah, if you had,
Like you got 8 tabs.
right.
You have a little thing that says 8, like over on the far right-hand side or something.
Yep.
So
Or
even
both ways. If I had, let me add.
If you have 3 on the left, 4 on the right, or whatever.
And boy, my test data is awful. Just making stuff up now. But yeah, like here where there's some on the left and some on the right, because I'm looking at, let's say, this tab, right? Well, not really a tab, but this slide, right? This could tell me I could have a 2 here and a 3 here.
Yep.
To tell you there's 2 more over there, there's 3 more over there. That would be really neat. Yeah.
Maybe even like a +2 and a +3.
Yep. And then combine that with, I don't know if that was Beverly or Karen that said about the drop-down list.
It was Karen.
Karen, yeah, that could be, yeah. So that it has some potential. There was another note that I put out here is that a lot of these, like the hide when on all 3 of these, and the conditional format on all 3 of these, and the name of the button on all 3 of these they're the same calculation. The only thing that changes is the button number. So if I were doing this for extended use and not for demonstration, I would create a custom function for each of those things that just takes a button number rather than have, these whole long calculations in each one. Just turn it into a custom function so I can pass in a button number. And that way, if I ever wanted to make changes to it, I can just change the custom function.
And so if you wanted to attach a script to only specific tabs, you would have to pass that button number so that it would know you were on that particular tab before it executed that script.
I think in that case I would actually make a larger exception. But in the case where these are all doing exactly the same thing, they're hiding under exactly the same condition. The only thing that's different is the button number.
Yeah.
I use custom functions for that a lot, where I'll have a function just so that I don't have to have the whole function written in a bunch of places. I have a single point where I can change the custom function, and as long as you just pass it a button number, they all do the same thing.
Sure.
So I would really recommend that if you were going to do this, on many, many layouts, particularly if you're going to do it for many, many layouts, but even if you were just going to do more than 3 buttons, just copying and pasting that big, long calculation in several places is kind of silly, really, outside of a demonstration, right? You'd want to just make it a custom function and say, run the, hide tab button for button number 4, right? Oh, I'll go ahead and move on to the next thing if everybody's all set. I will take the quietness as we're moving on. Okay. So next we have that dynamic crosstab data entry interface. This was a challenge where what I was given as a demonstration was essentially a spreadsheet with values down the side and values across the top. So in a spreadsheet, you can just easily add a new column, just as easily as you can add a new row. But that's a little more challenging in FileMaker, of course. And usually we can talk, I can talk the client into, let's just make this a top to bottom report instead of a top to bottom and left to right report. But in this case, we're actually looking at data in such a way. Boy, I'm stumbling all over myself. I should just show you that thing we were looking at earlier. They're running a series of tests, which are down the left-hand side, and they have their testing times, which are going across the top. And it's just as now, going left to right, they need to see the trend for this one test, but they also need to see patterns in what happened at this particular time. If something was out of whack on this row, that might explain why it's out of whack on this other row. So they're scanning their data both left to right and top to bottom. So really FileMaker's, summarized top to bottom reporting is really not working well for them. Okay. And then, so the solution, and again, I have a demo file here for us. Okay. Close this. So in this demo file, I've named, remember this is all for demonstration purposes. I'm trying to make it easy for somebody to pick apart and apply to their own use, right? So we have a table called context, which is just where am I coming from, right? Where am I looking at this portal? We have rows, which are the rows in the portal. Columns, which are records that represent this data set, top to bottom, and then data, which is the data where that column and that row meet. If that makes any sense.
The join table.
Yeah, it's the join table that brings it all together. Good word. I should have used that. This is what the RG looks like for this. I'm in context. This context has rows, this context has columns, and this context has data where those two things meet. And we have some relationships here on the row, so I can relate to just 5 columns. I can relate to the 5 data points on that row. And this is very much like that unlimited tabs thing where I can slide it over. I can look at tabs 1 through 5, or I can look at tabs, excuse me, I can look at columns 1 through 5 or columns 6 through 10 with these same relationships. Okay. So here's the effect. I can come down here and I can add a value for the row. So this is my new row. And for each column, I can put in a value. And then I say, oh, well, I need a column 6. So I say add. It says give a name for the column. I'm going to call it starfruit. And now I'm on column 6. You see I've got arrows here now? So it added a column and then adjusted me over so that I could see it. Whoop.
Lovely.
These are in alphabetical order. Sorry. All right. Is this making sense?
Awesome.
Yeah, I like it.
I can also delete a column. For instance, I want to get rid of pineapples. They're gone. And it also adjusts, you know. Just to make things fun, I put things in alphabetical order. So like, for instance, if I add blueberries, whoop, if I actually click in the field and then type blueberries, see, it didn't have to shift me over because it's showing, right? But if I were to add, gosh, do we already have strawberries? Okay. I'm running out of fruits here, guys. All right. But if I were to add strawberry.
No mangoes, buddy.
Strawberries. Thank you. That'll be my next one. If I add strawberries, it not only adds the column, but figures out I can't see it. So it goes over so that I can see that column.
Wow.
And this actually ends up being kind of not as complicated as it looks. Okay. If I go into layout mode, I do have this one portal here. This is for the columns, so via script I can it allows addition, so I can add a column by adding a record in this portal. These 2 arrows and the names work very similar to that unlimited tab thing I was just showing you. My delete button really just goes to the appropriate row in this portal and deletes portal row. This add a column where it asks for a name, when I click add, it really goes to this portal and adds that and then figures out where does that fall in the alphabetical order so I can adjust the arrows. There are, if I remember right, no custom functions in this. And I did break out the scripts mostly for clarity, right? So I have add a column, column arrow left, column arrow right, column delete, and row delete. And you can see none of them are terribly long scripts.
No.
How far back would this go? Version 14, 13?
Let me think. It does have a popover and use hide wins, so I think that puts us in at least 14, or was it 13? I think 13 may have added both of those things. Somebody help me out here.
Yes.
13 had hide win, but did 13 have popovers?
Yes.
It did. Okay, so this would work as far back as 13.
Okay, so it's not any 16 tricks.
No.
Yeah.
No,
Cool,
it's really
but
not.
it's too good.
Yeah.
Very good.
And, you know, as with the previous thing, you know, especially with some of the things that have been added in 16, I would imagine, you know, it's not like this is as fancy as it could get. You know, it's a presentation of the concept, but yeah. So this is actually just working really well for these guys, you know, because they really just need to be able to scan left to right, scan top to bottom, but really their screen's limited anyway. I mean, even if they were in a spreadsheet, it's not like you can look at 100 columns all at once, right?
Do they ever request to print that?
I have talked them out of that.
Good.
Right? Because
What was
that's a
that? You
whole
talked
different
about a what?
animal. When you want to print it out, yeah, that's challenging because getting that variable number of columns is something that FileMaker's not real happy about. You know?
I might use an execute SQL or something where you've got tab stops to space it into a single field. But
Yeah, but even if you do that, I mean, there is a limit to how many columns you can show. I mean, especially on a printout. I mean, you can't stretch paper. No amount of sliding or whatnot is going to make the paper get wider. So.
Well, but you can get a big magnifying glass.
Oh, there you go.
And just keep adjusting the page setup until it's...
Yeah, shrinking the percentage, yep.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, our magnifying glasses are not just icons. They actually comes with a physical magnifying glass. Oh, that would be great. Yeah. We actually determined that for the person doing the inspections in this case, scanning top to bottom and left to right was really important, but by the time they present it to the customer, they're talking about specific tests. So that top to bottom sub-summarizing, you know, and just showing, okay, here's the test, here's what happened over time. From top to bottom is just fine for the customer. So thank goodness, because that was, I mean, when you start getting into crosstabs for printing or you know, where you have to see them all at once, for one thing, the paper won't stretch, and for another, there is another way to do it with, you kind of have to build up like an HTML page, or like you're saying with the tab stops, but still you have to know how many tab stops and how far away can I put them and still fit stuff. There's just a limit to how much you can display at once. So.
Sure.
Just a quick question,
this
Chris.
is somewhat similar. I will answer you, but it's somewhat similar to what you see in a spreadsheet, because really you scroll right on the spreadsheet. You know, you probably freeze the left column and then you scroll right. So we're not adding a lot of work here. What were you saying, Frank?
I assume you can't do a find here, correct?
No, not on these. Right. You can do a find on the rows, right? Actually, that's an interesting. What I could do is show a field in find mode that is the overall relation to data points. And then I could search, for instance, for my new row where there's a value of 4 somewhere in here. See what I mean?
Yep.
Whereas this is specifically looking at column 3 and this is specifically looking at column 4. This would not work well for a find. But if I were to just show the general relationship from row to columns, then it would find where any of the columns were 5. And that would still work.
Okay.
Yeah. And likewise, you could change this to show the general relationship to columns. But
How hard would it be to export this as like an Excel file so they could do whatever they want with the whole data set?
pretty hard. However, a roll your own CSV would work wonderfully.
yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about printing, is that if you can get it to a tab, calculated tab with SQL or not, then you could also export that to be a
Yeah. Yeah. But definitely, yeah, so still a roll your own?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? So, yeah, exporting this as a CSV or as a tab separated wouldn't be that challenging. But of course, you know, whatever program they go to, they're, you know, your screen or your piece of paper is still only so wide. You know, I think in my description of this, I specifically mentioned data entry. That's this is really focused around the user being able to enter the data and view the data they're entering in this format. So,
And then is that data used elsewhere?
yes, yes it is. Yeah, then we'll be following up and finding the things that are out of range. The actual solution here, they have, they establish what the normal parameters are for the test. You know, like we're expecting values between 25 and 85. So anything out of range shows in red, but also for the reporting to the customer, we're going to be looking at any tests that had abnormal results, and that's what we're going to report back to the customer.
Cool.
So, like I said, in here, I just named them columns and rows, trying to just orient you. So if you want to pull this apart and use it, of course, columns become whatever these things are, and rows become whatever these things are, and the method should work for you. And then, of course, there's always room to make it fancier. So feel free to run with it and tell me what you did with it. It's kind of a fun little method. It ended up one of those things that sounded almost impossible until I started to do it, and it wasn't that bad. Okay. So,
Nice.
Good deal.
thank you. Moving on to the next thing, we have virtual. I'm not gonna bother to show this in slideshow. They're really just excuses to get me to the demo. Virtual list basics. Just the basic concept of how to create a virtual list. I know there's a lot of offshoots of this method, and I suspect that a lot of us have used them before. So I'm going to throw out the question, is there anyone here who doesn't know how to do a virtual list?
I'm going to say no.
Okay, that's all I needed, was just for one person to say they hadn't seen it, hadn't done it before. Because if I don't explain it, the next thing won't make sense. So, good. So the challenge that virtual list solves, a couple of the challenges that it solves, in addition to enabling some really wild and crazy stuff, is that in a portal in FileMaker, you can only show records from one table, right? Where sometimes you need to mix them. And the second challenge is that you can't show the same row twice. So if you want the same record to show in more than one place in the list, you're out of luck in a standard portal. So here's the really, really simplified demonstration of a virtual list. I have this where I can type a list of values in here, such as and I get this in a portal. Okay.
Right.
So you can imagine that with scripts, functions, and so forth, you could get just about anything into here, right? You want to be able to display it in a portal. Is this concept making sense so far?
Yes.
Okay. There's really only two tables in this solution. There's your context, and that could be anything. And then there's your virtual records table. The virtual records table has to have enough records to show in the portal. And in the virtual records table, I have a record number and I have a virtual record string, which just gets that record number's value from this list. So record 3 would get the third value, record 4 would get the fourth value, and so forth. Okay. I then have in my context table, I have a field that counts these values, So in this case, it's going to come up with 6. And a relationship from context to virtual records where that number, 6, is greater than or equal to the record number. That's how I end up with 6 records showing here. Okay. And I believe there's only one more moving part to this very simple demonstration. And that's I have a on-object save script trigger. Runs a script called update portal. And that does 2 things. It makes sure I have enough records in the virtual records table for this list, and it refreshes this portal. So this, I actually split this off as a subscript. This goes to the virtual records layout and just keeps, it says, do I have enough records? Loop until I do have enough records. Okay? Based on a script parameter. And then it refreshes. Okay. In this case, I'm refreshing the whole window. I would bet you could get away with just refreshing the portal object. Is this making sense, Jim? And I think there was somebody else who said they hadn't used virtual records before.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to make sense of when would I use something like this, Chris?
Yep. Good point.
I'm looking at the practicality of it.
Right. This is very simple values, right? But let's say I wanted let's say this was contacts, and I wanted to show in a portal phone numbers, emails, addresses, and websites all in one portal. Well, that's from 5 different tables.
Gotcha.
Right? I can write something that puts them all into this field, either by calculating them or running a script or whatnot, and then display them all together in a list. Okay. Also, you can imagine easily enough that I could do, for instance, some pipe-separated data in here. Right? And in my virtual records table, I can parse it apart.
Yeah.
Right, so I could have in my virtual records where not only do I get the string, but I say, well, the first part of the pipe separated list is the name, the second part is the value. Right, so I can get multiple values across here. I can also...
That wouldn't put it in a separate row. That's what I was thinking.
No, that would... Yeah, that's if you wanted to make multiple columns in this. All right. But then also you can do things like I've done a virtual list where, like for instance, this is, like I said, a super simple demo, you know, where I'm trying to make it so that you can pull this apart later. So I purposely didn't do anything fancy in it.
No.
But Mango.
I guess another place this comes to mind is in a calendar if you're trying to show, for example, contacts, jobs,
Yep.
You know, notes.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that would be displayed in the same cell, and it's going to link to different record IDs. So what you're trying to do is store the ID, but then also here's the data that you want to display.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's an example where, for instance, if I was parsing these 2 values out, I could have the header, like numbers, be formatted differently. So like this is all in bold. This is numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. And this is in bold too. This is fruits, mango, etc. You can make kind of a sub-summarized portal. Right? And that's where...
Make it look like a hierarchical.
Exactly, exactly. In fact, I'm wondering if I have, let me see, house. Let me open this up. I think it's pertinent to what you're asking, Jim, because that is a fair question. If you haven't used it before, it's like, what the heck would I use that for? Let me add some objectives to this. I'm going to say do thing 1, which is assigned to me and to Jason. I'll say do thing 2, which is assigned to me and Wayne. And then I'll say do thing 3, which will just be assigned to Wayne. And I'll remove my own assignment. Okay, so if I want to say group these by assignee,
Gotcha.
here's the things for Chris, here's the things for Jason, and here's the things for Wayne. You see how thing 1 is showing here and here? And thing 2 is showing here and here? And then I've also said that, you know, my header, whatever that turns out to be, should be formatted differently. And then this is also a collapse button where I can say collapse Chris's objectives. Collapse Jason's, right? So this is kind of an over-the-top implementation, but the field that I'm reading out of, whereas before we were just using a pretty simple global field here. Let me see, this would be objectives. My virtual list is reading this. This row is just a header that says Chris Kane. Here's my objective key. Here's the name. Here's the type of objective, the date, you know, what the status is, all sorts of information built into this. My virtual records table is taking this, parsing it, and each row behaves accordingly.
Now, I've tried to do this and add container fields for status of these activities.
Mm-hmm.
I had all kinds of trouble with it.
Containers. Do you mean like container field type?
Yeah, I wanted to show, I just have containers that contain colored swatches. So if it's,
okay.
if it's pending, it's yellow. If it's overdue, it's red. If it's done, it's green. And they just show as like a little box at the end of the row where you have your little gear icon.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Trying to figure out how to relate those container statuses to the data through this was
okay. Pack your bags. We're going to go on a quick tangent. I have this field here is a color swatch, and it I think I can bring this to the surface pretty quickly. If not, I'll...
Are you filling that with a
16.
conditional?
Say again?
Are you in 16?
I am at the moment, yes, but this is not 16 specific.
Oh, no, but you can use this new 16 feature to find it.
Oh, I see what... No, I didn't mean bring the object to the fore. I meant like like for instance, I'm using custom functions and calling pre-built scripts and things like that. Sometimes it's hard to dig down to the core issue like I'm doing with the demo files and just go, this is the thing I want to show you, because it's, you got to pull threads. What I have here is, okay, X text symbol block, and there's an example where it's a custom function. So now I got to go look at the custom function. X text symbol block. This right here. This is a character that is basically just a box. Okay.
Yep.
You can color text dynamically.
Yep.
Right? So I'm applying a text color to it, and it works just like having that container field with a swatch in it. My text field is the swatch.
Cool.
So I just discovered I could do that actually during this project.
On iOS.
It's working well on PC and iOS. As you say that, I realize I haven't tried it on a Mac yet, but I'm imagining if it works well on iOS, it's going to work well on a Mac.
And what about WebDirect? Or do we care?
I personally don't, but somebody could test and get back to me on that. How can I give that to you? That is, I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's see, X text color swatch. No. Darn, I just looked this up. What was it called? Did anybody notice? Symbol block. There it is.
You can paste it into the chat window.
That's exactly what I was going to try. I was going to see if GoToMeeting butchers this or not. There you go. So if you were to copy that, if you put that as in a field as a calculation result, but then do text color add, you can make a text field into a color swatch. And one that, in this case, this is actually showing the grade which the user or the administrator actually picks for themselves. They pick a text color from this list. I get the RGB value to go with it. And then the administrator gets to color those swatches. So they can say all the good stuff is green, all the next available opportunity is yellow. But if they decided that they wanted this to be fuchsia or something, they can later on.
If anybody is on Mac, you can add to your menu bar Show Character Viewer, and you can see all the thousands of different types of characters, including the blocks to work with.
Good to know. Good to know. And on Windows, it's really simple. All you need is 17 fingers, and you can type with these. Yeah, 17 fingers and 17 hours of research to find the blasted thing. I'm trying to remember where I found that just so I could
tell
get
everybody on Mac?
I'm just saying, there's some things you can do on a Mac that is so much easier. I mean, like typing a Pilcrow character. I don't ever type a Pilcrow character on a PC. I go find one and copy it because I don't even know how to type the blasted thing. And on a Mac, somebody can probably tell me. It's like a couple. Yeah. How easy is that? Why can't we do that? The problem for me is people get used to that stuff on a Mac and they go, Chris, why can't you do it? It's like nobody really needs that, do they? Come on.
Windows doesn't have the equivalent of the keychain access either. I learned that today, and I'm like, no.
What do you mean for on FileMaker?
Well, like the keychain. For instance, I have clients who go, I don't know my FileMaker password. And I say, well, okay, let's open up the keychain, go here, and find it. And I needed to find some other stored password on the new server, and there isn't a place to find it. And I was like, no.
I'm pretty sure there is. I seem to recall that there is. Now, I don't remember where it is because I'm sure it's good and deeply buried.
The guy, IT guy showed me something for web stored passwords, but that was
Yeah.
it.
That I know we have, but I think in Windows as well, those are stored someplace you can get to, but it's really buried. I'm trying to remember where I
Is
saw
there
that.
a Unicode character for this, Chris?
I'm sorry?
Is there a Unicode character for this? So if we
The
use
block letter?
yeah. So
Here, I'll
if we
look
use,
one up.
I
if we
actually
use
don't know. I copied this.
that Unicode code is,
I'm sorry, I think I
Unicode name.
You think I'm sorry?
missed where you were showing us where you have the yellow there.
Yeah.
How are you getting that translated to that background character that you created?
I'm actually using a custom function for that as well. Boy, when I was trying to come up with tips and tricks, I didn't even think of these things, but I bet this would be useful. What did I call that?
Maybe blanking here, but how do you get the color of text?
I'm not. I have I have two custom functions here. Let me see if I can find the blasted things. Symbol block, bomb character.
Maybe you're not doing what I think you're doing.
Okay. So I've got a custom function that is a color table.
You.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
this is
like
ugly.
that.
All this is a massive text block that has a pipe separated. It's a pipe separated list, color name, color number, hex, red, green, blue, RGB together, right? And then each row in it is the color name, the color number, et cetera, et cetera. And then I have another custom function that translates from any column to any column. So it says, here's my input value. This input value is, let's say, the color number, give me back the RGB, or the color name, give me back the RGB.
Oh, okay. What I thought you were doing was allowing the user to change the text to the color of the text.
Oh, no, they don't change the color. No, it comes
okay.
up with whatever color. Let me remember that this is yellow too, but like if I change this to aqua, I've got an auto entry on the field that changes the actual name to aqua as well. Yeah. Although I bet you could get that with get a CSS. Let me try that.
Right. Yeah, you can do that.
Get as CSS of the, what did we call it? Text color. I wish they'd fix this on Windows.
I actually used that method to search data that they'd colored text red in, because we had to find all the records where they just formatted something red because, something happened, and I had to actually do a search on that.
Yeah, I can get back the hex.
Yep.
Ooh.
and then you can convert that to RGB.
Right. Yeah. So I could do it that way. Let them color the text and then figure out from the color what the RGB is and store that. But
there's one for you.
Yeah, actually, that might have been easier. Might have been an easier way. I didn't think of that.
Chris, I got to be able to use that because I have that client. They choose a color to format their text, so someone knows who typed what.
Uh-huh.
And they've been using the pull down, but then I did an auto script so that if the person's FileMaker account is this, then use that RGB and.
Yeah. I think that was the first time I used this. Was a similar situation. They had a shared calendar, and they wanted each person to have their own color. So I gave them a pull down on their account screen where they could say this account is going to use aquamarine or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'd color that person's text on the calendar.
They've been sending me screenshots of the FileMaker color palette menu and circling one like, I want this. I tried to teach them to use the digital colorimeter, whatever, the thing that comes on the Mac that'll tell you any RGB values so that they can just type the damn RGB values and leave me alone.
I actually, I did one solution where it was for a bank where they could have multiple cosigners. It was commercial banking. And I'm trying to remember the specifics, but they wanted each cosigner to have their own color for legibility. It was a really complicated report. And I actually had it incrementing the RGB value enough that you could tell them apart and automatically assigning each person a color.
Nice.
Right, it would actually increment enough so you didn't end up with like 2 shades of blue that were really close to each other.
Now you remember, do you know how trade shows have to have badges in different colors, make it easy for the guards? That was my job, picking the colors to print the badges in, because we had 17 badges to differentiate.
Oh, goodness.
Back when I was a graphic designer.
So how did you pick your standard colors, that huge string of text?
Oh, I actually cribbed that off a website, and I can't even remember the website at this point. It was just basically a table, a translator table. I think you can probably just Google it. And I turned that into a pipe-separated list so I could just throw it in a custom function. Rather than adding a table just for colors, I threw it into a custom function.
I was just wondering how you chose those colors. Did you have
that's all of them. It's all of them.
Oh, it's all of the standard.
Yeah, it's all of the named web colors.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a pretty long list. Actually, I wonder how long that list is. It's value count of X sys. Oh, come on, FileMaker. Sometimes I just really hate type ahead. I mean, it's such a cool thing.
Oh, God, do I ever.
Yeah, it's like,
Especially
I know what I'm typing.
Functions, like a plugin that has these wordy descriptions, and all of a sudden you type if, and you're looking at 12 paragraphs.
Right. I wish they'd let you shut it off like you could shut this off.
Somebody on the forum said if you hit escape, it will stop, but I don't know if it's true.
Yeah.
It won't,
Each
like
time.
if I do this and then hit escape, it'll type the X and then it'll escape. It's like, I need you to stop before you go looking for everything that has an X in it. Anyway, I've got 570 rows in there. One of them's a header row, so I've got 569 colors in there. But you could apply the same principle with a longer list. I have another client that wanted a list of colors, but they wanted to define the list of colors. So I gave the administrator the option to pick from those 569 colors the 5 or 6 that they wanted their users to use. And then that was their users drop-down list, was the shorter list. So, boy, have we gotten a little far afield. Back to Jim, do you remember the virtual lists we were talking about forever ago?
No, that's all right.
I'm still playing with the Unicode table.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're here, is for tips and tricks, and it's all tips and tricks. So I don't feel bad, but yeah, Jim, that's why you would use a virtual list. You can mix tables together. You can,
Gotcha.
juggle records around and so forth. And really, it's just kind of temporary. I just need this stuff to show in a portal in the right order, formatted the right way. I'll take it from there.
Temporary instance.
Yeah. And that, you could actually get to the point where you could type in here, but then things start to get complex, That's where you've got to have a relationship beyond your virtual records table to the actual record, right?
That could be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's easy to go crazy on this.
Yeah.
So I did want to, and I'll post this along with the other demo files so that if you want to explore the method, just the basics of the method, you've got this. Okay. The next example I have is, wait a minute, getting back here, the virtual list hierarchy, where you want to show a collapsible hierarchical list. Okay, this is actually not as complicated as this beast that I was showing you with the accordion style. Okay, this is just a straight up hierarchy. I will pull this up, and I'm also going to confess as I'm bringing this up, this is not the fastest thing in the world. And I was hoping to find time to speed it up to figure out why it's running so slow, but I did not. So somebody feel free to improve this and kick it back to me. I'm actually using this method in that solution I was showing you with the power units, but it's a very limited set of data and it's actually running at decent speed. But for some reason, even 395 rows is taking a god-awful time to load. So
I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of you here, but this virtual list technique was originally shown here in Boston to us. It was Curologic, I think, Kyologic rather, that they were using global variables instead of fields.
Okay.
And
yeah.
and the purpose of which is to really speed up things because it's all in local RAM.
Interesting.
Not that the global field isn't.
Yeah, I wonder if that would make a difference. I really wanted to find time to try and speed this up because I'm sure I actually narrowed down it's the portal filter that I'm using here. That's, if I take off the portal filter, this portal loads in a heartbeat. So I got that far, and then I'm afraid I didn't get time to troubleshoot further. But I still wanted to present the basic concept that this is countries, states, and counties within the states. So if I expand, hopefully this expands faster than it just did all that blasted loading. And apparently it doesn't. This is going to be dog slow.
Are you using the filter to create this hierarchy, or is that for something else?
I'm using the filter to hide those records that are collapsed.
Okay. All right, so it's directly related to the technique.
Right. Yeah. Which makes this a bit embarrassing, but come on. All right, this wasn't running this badly before. Okay, so it finally unrolled it, right? I can show it to you working in a smaller implementation. Remember I mentioned here that they're drilling down through several layers? So we've got the job, which has power units. The power units have subsystems. The subsystems have components, and the components have inspection points, right? So it's like a 5-level deep hierarchy. And that's great when they're doing the inspection because they're looking at one thing at a time, and that's just fine. But sometimes they're going to want to see an overview. So I gave them this job directory, again with the card window, because I can get to it from anywhere inside the job. And I think my computer just hates me today. Come on. All right. So here's the job. And I can expand it to show the power units. And then within the power unit, I can expand that. This is clearly not ready for prime time. Right? Then I can show the subsystems, and if you see I get a little plus sign if there's if the subsystem has some components beneath it. All right, so I can open that up. I swear this was not running as slowly before. It's never happened before. And then I can get down to the individual inspection points. I can also set the level, put this up here, so I can say just show me at the subsystem level, and it'll collapse everything below the subsystem level at an alarming pace.
Yeah, I've got some kind of totally different system, a hierarchical portal data for job estimating.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many different layered objects in there. It'll be a lot easier to deal with in 16, but it's really dog slow because I'm throwing out all these techniques into that one portal, and it's just like, help me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously, I still need to keep working on this because as my data has grown, I've realized this is not as scalable as I want it. What I'm trying to determine on each row is that I'm looking at, are all of my parents expanded? And do I have children? Right?
Nice idea.
So if all of my parents are expanded, then I should be showing. And then if I have children, I should show either a plus or a minus depending on whether the children are expanded, or depending on whether this item is expanded. So I think I'm going to admit that this needs some work, but this is still a demonstration of the method, and I will still put this out for download. I'll try and get a little time and speed it up before I do that. But it's just a demonstration of the concept. So if I were to look in here, I have context, I have virtual records, and then I also have countries, states, and counties. So if you look at my relationships here, I have the context. The context is related to basically all countries. Each country is related to its states. Each state is related to its counties. And then I also have where I'm parsing out the row from the virtual list field. I'm determining what's the country key, the state key, and the county key, depending on what row I'm on, and relating to country, states, and counties. So again, I'll put this up. I'll try and figure out what's slowing it down before I put it up, but I'm not going to hold up getting it out on the website as a concept. Just wanted to give you an example of something you can do with a virtual list. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife for a lot of things, but it's trying to address really the question Jim asked earlier, like what the heck would I use this thing for? Yeah. Obviously, it should be used with caution because you can do stuff that's fairly slow if you're not careful. Okay.
The multiple rows with the same data was very powerful. And if you're trying to do a report where you need that kind of thing, you can't do it other than with virtual.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, being able to show the same row twice. I mean, it's that old roadblock where you can't sort by multiple values, you know, by a multi-value field, right? Or you know, a many-to-many relationship. You can't really sort that very well. So it's a good tool to have in the toolbox. Okay. Let's see. I think we're down. Oh, okay. SQL custom functions. We are running out of time, so I don't think we're going to make it to the magic value list, which is the last one after this. But that one it's publicly available. I was just going to show it off and, get people's thoughts on it. But the magic value list leverages SQL and virtual lists to give you value lists from tables, but in specific orders. You can get value lists of unstored values. It solves a lot of things, and if we don't get to it, I just want to encourage you to check it out. Like, you can just Google Magic Value List FileMaker, and Jeremy Banty has actually put it on the, although he says he didn't invent it, but he's put a really good demo on modularfm.org, and you can pull that down and check it out. Okay, so like I said, if we run out of time and don't get to that, please still check it out. It's really, really cool.
The best stuff is we stole from other people,
What's that now?
I said our best stuff is things we stole from other people.
That's right. That's right. What is that old thing? If you steal from one person, you're a plagiarist, but if you steal from a bunch of people, you're a researcher, or something like that. Anyway, all right. So this thing, I think we're not really gonna be able to do a deep dive on this, but it's something I've been working on, and again, I'm gonna share it and see if anybody can improve on it. Okay. This is SQL. I've got a series of custom functions for creating and evaluating execute SQL functions. So let's see if I can manage to demo that really, really quickly. So this is actually a whole set of custom. Oh, I just closed the file because I'm not very smart. Hit the wrong button. File, manage, custom functions. All right, you see there's 28 custom functions in here. I got into this and realized how many of my custom functions read other custom functions. So it is possible that this list could be trimmed down substantially, but I pretty much brought in all my dependencies. Okay. The thing this is supposed to be addressing is that trying to write this on the fly, I don't know about everybody else, it makes my eyes cross. Trying to figure out where to escape out quotes, where quotes are necessary, where tick marks are necessary, and just general format of especially as the SQL queries get more and more complex, trying to keep that just basic, how do I write a SQL statement without screwing it up? And then also, what things do I have to comment out or quote or whatever because I'm using FileMaker, right? Drives me crazy. Every single time I come across it, I end up, chasing down a quotation mark for an hour, It always ends up being something that's really just me not being a real programmer. But I got tired of it. So I created these functions which I just called XSQL because we like to put X in front of everything. So I've got XSQL and I also have XSQL expression, right? And for parameters, it just takes parameters because the actual parameters that are needed depend upon what kind of SQL statement you're writing. Like, you may not need a where clause, you may not need a sort clause, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm using our XTAG notation, which is the way that we pass multiple parameters to scripts. Those of you who have been in this FMPUG enough times have probably seen our XTAG notation, but works like this. You have XTAG, what's the name of the tag, such as get, right? And so, and let's see, get, get field name of invoices, invoice date. And see that writes out the execute SQL expression. Okay. I just realized we have a couple of new people here who had in no way seen Xtag. What this thing does, just the Xtag, is it basically puts it in an XML format. Okay. So the name of the tag is get. The thing I want inside the tags is the field name of this. So that's how and that's what I'm passing into XSQL expression, which says, okay, you want to get that field, then it must be coming from this table, which I can get from the field name. So select, it abbreviates. So it's basically select from invoices as INV and get me INV invoice date. Anybody still with me?
Barely.
I'm kind of starting in the middle, aren't I? But
I don't know what I need them for yet, but.
Well, for example, here's okay, in my sample file here, I have invoices. Invoices have line items. Those line items are related to products, right? Pretty common use, right? So here's an example where this parameter that I can pass in, which says get the invoice ID, where the field invoice date is 6/2, and the quantity on the line item is greater than 1, and the product on that line item is apples. I'm doing all this by saying get this field where this field equals this value, this field equals this value, but the operator isn't an equals, it's greater than. This field equals this value, this field equals this value, etc. I'm doing a join across 3 tables with a greater than, and I didn't write any of this.
And you didn't create a whole bunch of relationships to do it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the relationships do exist, but I'm not actually using them.
Ah, okay.
Right. I mean, I have those relationships just to show the demo screen, but we're not leveraging the relationships at all. So this is doing the select from where it does the joins by, we're saying that, the primary key in this table equals the foreign key in this table. The primary key in this table equals the foreign key in this table. Right.
So what's with your SQL result, though, down at the bottom?
That is the primary key of the one invoice that matches.
Oh.
That's what you're asking for, right?
Right.
Oh,
This is actually the result.
that.
Yeah, so if I were to say, here's a simpler example where I'm saying just get from invoices where the invoice date is 6/2, I get both invoices. Right, that's the 2 invoice keys in here that I have. Remember me saying I'm really horrible at test data, right? But like this has 2 apples, so it has more than 1 on apples. If I were to go to this invoice and say that it had apples 3, and I go back to that SQL query, the big complicated one, see now I'm finding both of the invoice keys.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, can I just ask quickly here? I noticed you're escaping the field name, but
Yeah.
not the table name. You've never run into problems with that?
I am actually escaping the table name. Right here.
And then he's creating an alias of that.
Yeah, it's the alias that I'm not. Actually, that's a caveat that I have to make sure I mention. The way I set this up, This is using our naming convention. It was the one thing that I didn't chase down here. Our naming convention is to put a TLA underscore underscore and then the full name. I need that in the current iteration of this these SQL custom functions because I'm using the TLA as the alias. I'm sure there's plenty of ways around that, but like I said, it was built for internal use and we already have these TLAs that we use, so I'm using them for aliases.
I'm sorry, TLA?
Oh, three-letter abbreviation.
Oh, God. Alrighty.
It's a three-letter abbreviation for three-letter abbreviation. Sorry. Insert groan here, right? But yeah, it does the aliasing. This will also handle, and again, we're going to run out of time before I can get into all the details, but let me show you this actually has documentation, go figure, even though I wrote it. In the XSQL function, it tells you all the different tags you can pass in. So get is the fields to get. You can pass dis for select only distinct rows. The field and value pairs, the operator to use. Surprisingly, you almost never need to pass in table. Like the from clause of the SQL statement is unnecessary. Because we're using fully qualified field names, you can get the field name from the get and the where. And this will determine those without you having to explicitly say, I'm looking in this table. If I say I'm looking for this field in invoices where this field in line items equals something, then we already know this is from invoices and line items. So it'll do it by itself. But we do have a place to introduce tables. This will also accept, you can put 2 instances of the same table, like self-joins. You can pass in a sort order field and sort order direction. So you can sort your results, by first name ascending, last name descending, whatever. So this is already starting to get pretty robust.
Yeah.
So was it, Karen, were you asking where you might use this? Oh, did we lose Karen? No, she's there. Or I hate to keep asking that. Was that Karen or Beverly?
It was probably me. No, I keep forgetting I'm on mute and I go to talk and I'm like,
oh, okay. Yeah, you're just talking away, right?
no, if I hadn't had the mute on, you would have heard a cat fall off the table and drag the phone and the lamp with him.
Oh, that might have been fun. You don't know. Well, can you now understand where you might use this for just quickly writing SQL statements?
Yeah, no, I like it because I haven't really learned SQL yet, so it prevents me from worrying about the syntax too much.
Yeah, that was my thing. It's like I can write SQL, but it's not natural to me. I'm a FileMaker guy, and it's not that I don't understand the concept. It's those little, it's the semicolons or commas or quotes or ticks or,
Syntax.
Yeah. Or tripping over like a field name that turns out to be a reserved SQL word, Didn't see that coming, So I'm trying to hold what I've got here. I'm trying to make it so that once I figure something like that out, I can put it into the custom function, use that custom function and not worry about it anymore,
Now, I take it your parameter processed, is that an execute of your text that's generated from the first block? Like you're kind of feeding it so we can see the results?
Yeah. I actually have 2 functions. I have XSQL expression and XSQL. XSQL just gives you the result. But essentially one is, XSQL says make an expression out of this and then evaluate it. Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, I want to share this. You know, I think it could be better. Definitely, it'd be worth getting it to work without the TLAs in the table name. I realized at the last minute that I was relying on that. I didn't have time to adjust it. And you know, there's this will accept in operators as well. For those of you who have used SQL, somebody give me a short explanation of in.
In
Anybody?
is an or find on any of the values that are comma delimited.
There
If
you
you
go.
say X in parentheses 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma, in parentheses, it'll find the 1 or the 2 or the 3.
Okay. Well, here with the field value pairs, remember there's the place to put operator. If you put in, it will make that comma separated list and also turn them into wildcards in the FileMaker expression.
Cool.
So the question marks. So this also takes care of things like dates, you know, where there's SQL dates and there's FileMaker dates, and you really want to use a wildcard character so you don't have to translate. You know, this takes care of that sort of thing. It automatically creates the wildcards for you. So, anybody think they'll use this, or want to play with it and try and improve it?
Eventually, we'll use it, yes.
Yeah, I'd love some feedback on it if you do use it, and you know, also as you find improvements for it. This doesn't do everything that the execute SQL will do. It does most, but honestly, I haven't come up with the need for the remaining whatever percent, maybe 5 or 10% of its functions. So time constraints. I just haven't gotten to those things yet.
Aggregate, like sum and count and...
Yeah,
like that.
that's on my list. That's on my list of things that this does not do yet. It's really just a matter of coming up with the parameters and inserting them in the appropriate places. Like I said, this is a series of custom functions. So there's a sub-custom function that creates the creates the select. There's another one that creates the from. There's another one that creates the sort. There's another one that creates the distinct, right? So you pass in all the parameters into just one custom function. It basically tasks it out to sub-custom functions to create the expression. It gets rid of a lot of redundancy. Like I said, not having to specify your from clause, because really you've already identified what tables by saying you want fields from those tables, or that you want to evaluate fields from those tables. So it creates the from clause with you not having to put in the table names again and again and again and again and again.
Cool.
So, yeah. So like I said, if anybody does download this and uses it, number one, I'd like to hear how you use it, but I'd also like to hear how you've improved it or how you think it can be improved, because it's kind of an ongoing thing. So, as predicted.
I have a quick random question about card.
Yeah, let's go. Sure.
If you have a card with like a history list, and so it's over the top of your layout, you push the history button, it shows this list. You touch one of the items, can you switch layouts on the card and keep the card open?
Yes, you can. Yep.
The card is single layout. Okay.
Yep. That card can be on any layout and in any file. So the caveats, I guess, are that, let me throw this up here again. So in this window, I can go to other layouts, other files, whatever. I guess the caveat is if you close the main window, the card closes with it. So be aware of that.
Okay.
Why did this just come up grayed out?
Thanks.
That was weird. I've got something underneath here, don't I? There it is. Okay. It came up. Yeah, so this can actually navigate to other layouts. In this case, I have it going to other slides, like I believe this will pull up a chart. No, that's, yeah, this actually goes to another layout, but it does so in the main window. And takes me someplace unanticipated, just because I don't know the system that well yet. Yeah.
Do the card layouts?
The card
Are the
layouts
card layouts?
slave to the main window, to the window you open them in. Does that make sense to you?
Say that again.
I was actually anticipating your question, which was rude. I'm sorry. Go ahead and ask your question. I don't think I answered it.
Well, I was going to ask a separate question about things like script triggers in the layouts that the cards are based on.
Yeah, they run as well. Yeah. So it's just like opening a new window, except that this new window is slaved to the main window. So like if I were to close this window, which I'd have to do via script because I can't click off, but if I were to close the main window, I lose this one as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but script triggers really everything.
Somebody demonstrated that you can have that card even off to the side so that you can't interact with the main window, but you can have it off so you can see everything on the main window, but your card window is silent.
Yeah, your card window has a default size.
Yeah.
But you can specify the size and position. So like you could make this window just show up over here, right? But it has to be within the boundaries of, I believe, it has to be within the boundaries of the main window.
I believe you're correct. I was playing with it.
Yeah. So you can move it down out of the way, and even the dimming in the background, that's a checkbox that I've checked to tell it to dim the background. But you can make it so it doesn't dim the background.
But you can't click on the background.
No, it is a modal window.
So right now you can't move that card left or right?
No, I cannot.
Okay.
No. Yeah. Actually, Jason Sanders, my business partner, he's planning to do a demonstration of card, specifically card, probably month after next. Next month, and actually since given the time, we should be talking about this sort of thing. Next month, Jesse Barnum of 360 Works is going to be presenting his new plugins that use the new plugin script steps, which I, for one, am really excited to see. He's got all his plugins doing that now, but I haven't had time to play with them, and I'm really looking forward to getting it straight from the horse's mouth, as it were, having Jesse show us around. So that's going to be in July. And then it looks like in August, Jason's going to do a deep dive on the card windows, which we kind of talked about a bit tonight. So you can definitely grill him about cards because he'll be ready. Poor Jason, he's under a bus and doesn't even know it. But that's what we have coming up for the next couple of months. Again, I'm going to put out the slideshow and the recording of this and the demo files up on our website. Should be up by next week. If you want to jump in, download, again, play with them, improve them, tell me about it. As always, if anybody has a topic they'd like to see in a future FMPUG with us, or better yet, wants to present at a future FMPUG, please, please, please let me know.
Well, I was just going to say, if you all want to come ask Bev, You got to send me the questions in advance, but I'll do that.
Do what now?
Do a topic which is Ask Bev,
Yeah?
and it's SQL or XML or web or whatever my specialties are, which, you know, I can talk about anything pretty much,
Right.
but if you send me the questions in advance, then I can, you know, kind
Oh,
of give
that
you
would
a
be
demo.
fun. That would be fun. I always like picking your brain, Bev. There's a lot to pick through in there.
I've forgotten more than I know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you still know quite a bit. I always like seeing you on the forums and checking out what you have to say. So, yeah, why don't we look at that for a future topic? That sounds great. And if we can get questions from the group, I mean, the kind of questions that have just been coming up as we went along tonight. You know, things I hadn't expected to talk about, which makes for a fun group session, I think. Just being able to ramble and go off topic and, you know, see what's interesting. So, all right. But all that being said, it is getting late. So unless anybody has any last minute things, I guess I'll see you all next month, I hope.
I do have one more.
Your
Sure.
iPad.
Whoop, I've got a couple in there. Go ahead.
Go on. All right. If anybody has a room at the Marriott to share, I'm in.
Ah, okay. Yeah, who's going to DevCon? Oh, it got quiet. Thing is, I think I'm missing it this year too.
No.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's not one I want to miss. Actually, I've just got too much going on, and I don't think I can make it. I may change my mind at the last minute. Is anybody else going?
It is the
from our
last minute
group.
for me, and I'm like, I think I need to get with it here. But doing it at a different hotel is probably not a good idea.
Yeah, you know, the first couple times I went, I cheaped out and went to another hotel and regretted it and said, yeah, never again.
Well, it's booked. It's booked up.
Yeah, but you don't have a choice at the last minute. I'm going to be in the same boat if I change my mind at the last minute. Bev, what about you? Are you going to make it this year?
Nope.
Oh,
No.
Nope.
wow. I've looked at the sessions too, and I'm like, man, of all the years that I can't make it, I really want to make this one. But
I'm going this year, and I'm planning to take a trip on Sunday afternoon to fly over the Grand Canyon, just go up and come back if anybody wants to join me.
oh, nice.
Ooh.
Nice.
Well, let's see. I'm taking notes here. So we've got Karen and is it Eric, correct? I've just been listening to your broadcast voice. And I forgot which name goes in a world, right? Yeah. So Eric and Karen are going to give us a rundown of what happened at DevCon, right?
Well, that's if I go. I need to find a room.
Yeah.
If I find a room, I promise I'll go.
All right. Well, unfortunately, it looks like hardly anybody else is going, so we can't help you. Have you put it out on the forums already?
I think I will do that.
Yeah, that's usually a good bet. I see a lot of those around DevCon time.
Yeah.
So, I hope you find one.
Yeah.
All right.
I need that therapeutic water.
Yeah. Was there somebody else who had a last minute thing, I thought?
I just suggested next time you show us your iPad, just because I'm curious how that looks.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, you can see my iPad.
Yeah.
It's just I couldn't manage to get the solution open. It's
yeah.
Here. Oh, it's actually been on this whole time. It's right there. Let me see if I can open something that's... No, I don't have anything that I have a password stored. Do I have something on the device?
Does Reflector show you what you're tapping on yet?
Well, I don't know. Here, I'm gonna click on this field right here?
No.
No, not really. I mean, it does after you've clicked on it. So, I mean, it's showing you everything
Well,
that's being on the iPad. But I'm actually tapping on the iPad.
it would be nice if Reflector did something like showed a little dimple or something where you're pressing.
Yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice, but I'm just happy to be able
Especially
to,
for gestures.
yeah, I'm just happy to be able to
Oh, yeah.
put the iPad up on the screen because before I was ending up, that was the time that I had to drop everything and go visit the client because we couldn't look over each other's shoulders. I didn't realize that Reflector was available for Windows until our last FMPUG.
Very
So
cool.
this in combination with GoToMeeting means that I can be looking at somebody's iPad or they can be looking at mine and I don't have to travel. So, yeah, it's awfully nice. I bought it right away. There is a trial version. The trial version just puts this annoying little advertisement thing on it. But it's like $15. You can't go wrong.
Definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Chris.
Does anybody who has a Mac use Duet?
I think I've heard of that. Is that the one where you can have multiple
You can
computers?
have an extra screen.
Yeah.
So if you have your Mac, say your my MacBook Pro, and I go to a place, I can have two screens. I put my iPad up as a second screen.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It's called Duet. It's like $10 if that one, but and technically you can actually put both your iPhone and iPad as long as you have on, but an iPad's good. I mean, with people now with the new iPad Pros, they're almost as big as you almost have two screens.
There was another program that actually Charles Wilchin, who did not make it, but Charlie was telling me he had a program where he has a PC and a Mac, and you could set it up so that you can move your mouse from your, for instance, PC screen over to your Mac screen. And it will just work on the Mac. You know, it's not only a second computer, it's not only a second screen, but the second screen is on a different computer. I'm trying to remember.
Not right.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Made me want to get a little cheap Mac just to try things out on the Mac. I wouldn't have to, like switch keyboards or anything.
Well, I didn't know there was such a thing.
I haven't tried
cheap
it.
Mac.
Yeah, a cheap Mac. Yeah, yeah. It's a Blueberry iMac. Yeah, they're giving those things away. I can't do anything with them, but they're still out there.
Oh, that,
yeah.
yes.
Right. I saw also the multiple desktop with different OS, and the mouse was able to switch with to the different machine.
Yeah,
left and right.
Yeah, it's like we used to do, or I used to do with a KVM switch. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but yeah.
Does that tell you anything?
Yeah, back when
If we say yes to that data.
A little bit. No, you can just say you heard about them in history class in middle school. Yeah.
Hey guys, I worked on a 1401.
Yeah. Whew.
Hey,
Yeah, back when
I got educated on a Mac SE30.
Wow. Yeah.
Trash 80? That was
yeah,
mine.
I remember those. Yeah. I used to use my KVM switch when processing was so slow that I would get tired of waiting on a progress bar and go switch to another computer. And at one point I had 4 computers set up underneath my desk with a KVM switch. So I could get one of my computers working and running a stupid progress bar, and they go, okay, I'll go work on computer 2 for a while, and that one would get a progress bar, and I go, okay, I'll go work on computer 3. By the time I got back to computer 1, it was done, and I could pick up that task, you know? Those were the days. But,
And thus, multiple processors were invented.
yeah, and now, geez, my computer stays ahead of me most days. So, or I had a Mac with a 40 meg hard drive that I ran a whole business on, and I couldn't figure out what I was going to do with all that space.
Oh, yeah.
Like
I
there's
remember,
not
I
enough
remember
programs
when,
in the world to fill that up.
yeah, I remember when Macintosh came out with the 33 meg hard drive, the world went nuts.
Right. Now, if you don't have that in RAM, you're falling behind. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. All right, guys. Well, I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys did too. And
Yeah.
but like I said, it is getting kind of late, so we should probably let everybody go. And hope to see you all next month. So,
Thanks, Chris.
all right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.